Okay. Our next reader is Katie Peterson. It's a great pleasure to have her back in the series. This is her, I think it's her 5th book, Fog and Smoke, which begins in fog and ends in fire. And it moves through a series of seeming non sequiturs and amazing images that I'm still thinking about. A baby is born in this book, a baby that I think is probably here tonight. And it's a quiet, I'm interested to hear how Katie's going to read it, but it reads as a quiet, earnest voice that moves across important spaces that require you to put them back together. And so here she comes. Let's all put it back together as she comes.
The teacher and the student. At one time, they could have been lovers. One taking the train 15 minutes after the other to not arouse suspicion. Her black silk skirt for Christmas left hanging in the closet. The ivory blouse with mother of pearl buttons left with one unbuttoned on the hanger. The pleated lace jabot to warm the neck in church, but also for elegance, left on the dresser, whose top drawer held her mother's psalter, and a fist-sized burlap satchel of lavender scenting her camisole and stockings, because her teacher, meeting his students in seminar each day and even Sunday afternoons if they were serious. Enough about Augustine's City of God to translate the texts themselves with the aid of a dictionary, had already seen her in everything she owned. His gaze glued now to a cardboard ticket. He'd gone first and did not imagine her moving forward on the later wheels of an older train, braked and squealed through those fields she worked earlier summers and even kissed a farmhand for fun, telling the boy she might be back. The fields of wheat that looked to her like letters of a bemused alphabet, catching her breath inside them, wondering what school would be like when it came. As if he could forestall what would take place between them, hunker it so deep inside his person, the way they would sit at once together on the bed, the sheet pulled tight in the way of train station hotels, in that town 2 towns north where no one knew them, as no school existed there, where not one person would think it strange that older and younger could be aligned by rings so new and cheaply made. They looked like they came from a spring fair, and hers on the wrong finger out of fear she might offend some god she'd been convinced to discount since her father died at 35 from syphilis. Her mother would describe as punishment, but would not say from what. Keeping to his half of the seat, the ticket taking up both of his hands like bread doled out in some orphanage, the scene could live like iron in the earth, hard in the senses, liquid underneath. She reaches for his top button with both hands as he remembers what she asked in French on the first day they knew they would tell each other their troubles, not just their interpretations. How did the philosopher who built the church want us to talk about our hearts? The one who knew why Adam and Eve covered their genitals rather than their mouths which had done all the sinning, not out of any fear of God, but since they couldn't face what they had done without talking about it. It's really nice to be back here with Joyce and Richard, the poetry gods. I was hoping that Andrea was going to read the poem about Springfield, Massachusetts, and I never sort of expect what it is that Andrea's poems are going to make me think about and remember these sort of pieces. And tonight it was the Krebs cycle, and I thought, well, talk about something I don't remember. But I love the way that her poems are littered both with the things that we remember and the things that we don't. So this book, Fog and Smoke, begins with a quote from Thoreau, and I just want to read one line from that quote before I read the next poem. We dream of foreign countries, of other times and races of men, placing them at a distance in history or space, but let some significant event like the present occur in our midst, and we discover often this distance and this strangeness between us and our nearest neighbors. I started writing this book halfway through the richest part of the pandemic, which may still be continuing depending on who you talk to, but it was a time in which it felt to me like the present moment was arriving with such intensity. I couldn't think about past and present and future. And there was this period during the pandemic when I couldn't write at all. I couldn't even write notes in my phone. I couldn't even text my friends. And the next poem I'm going to read, which is the first section of the book, comes after that period of silence. And it has a one-word title. And that title is one of the words in the title of the book. So I just want to warn you, it's a long poem. But I think if you just float with it, with me, we'll get there together. By there, I mean, I guess, wherever we need to go. Fog. Never covered everything like a shroud. It was always suspended over like 19th century women waiting for proposals. It was an alphabet on top of the one you knew, a redo, trills on the scales, glissando. It knew what it was doing between you. It is very patient teaching you. It was different from the world. It waited for you to say, I do not understand. I was like everyone else. I stopped lifting weights and walked instead. I did not shop if I could help it. Found new use for what I had. I did inside what I had done in the world. When I thought about what I lost, I loved myself. It comes from the ocean. It means our interior burns. Our coolness burns deep inland. It was haphazard. It liked to see you altered in your usual location. It is admirable when it arrives in the evening. It shadows the sunset. We should challenge what's gone before. The stories of heroes should almost end several times before they end. It was made of water, but not helpfully. A stag walked inside. It was a voice on the radio, a voiceover telling us about the technical difficulties making the funeral hard to hear at the moment when the great man's death became a family matter. A stag became concealed at the moment a car turned the corner. It required the driver to do more than pay attention. You have to be slow in advance of what's coming. The funeral came back with music, a song about what could last. It stayed the same, hanging around the house like a lovesick teenager or a grown-up with nothing to do, or curtains, or sirens. Anything with duration that acts permanent. Milk spills across the kitchen table with the children watching in slow motion and the mother watching the children in slow motion, and she thinks, I am the only one left. There is no one left to wash the dishes or the children but me. The fog comes home through the Golden Gate. It has no home in the ocean. What an absurd thought. Highway, paving itself, making off-ramps as it goes, bringing travelers of obscure origin but certain intention, steady. It is as lofty as they come. It touches everyone. It's like God. It disappears. It wants us to see ourselves. Its absence is clear. It didn't curtain the ocean. It curtained the bay, the place the ocean becomes domesticated, the name we give to water, land, delays. It sailed in on its own damn time, like a director looking for a star and finding only waitresses and waitresses. We auditioned for a year. It sized us up as we stood still. Our posture became a version of the poet's gesture. Attention turned into a question. You can climb out of it. I climbed the same hill every day for a season, past the Science Museum and the place they split the atom. The sense of accomplishment became ordinary. It was not arranged for your benefit. Inside, you couldn't see in front of you. Once above, you could only see a blank covering what you usually knew. On my walk, I wore our ethic so everyone could see I was a person. I created a tiny mist next to myself. That was between me and the mask. Basic nuisance, nothing special. I didn't need to talk about it. It falls into a category defined by patterning of language, a necessity to repeat experiences that feel like church but aren't. I wish you would come back, is what we say to what we love. Also, go away. Any return structures a day. Naked, my sister and I greeted our father, dancing and laughing at the door. We were almost too young to speak. Did that ever happen? Without you, I can't describe you. I say to the fog, you are different from people. I can't keep space. Though your cause lifted you up, it did not release you. Recantation of the ocean. as faithful as possible for a variable spirit. You're not like smoke. I can breathe you. You can't take down a house. I've been speaking about it at a distance. Now I want to talk about its thickness. A person could get killed in here. I welcomed it the way I welcomed love. Not a lover, there wasn't an agent. It was the change I made, not the dollar I broke to make it. Like money, power flows to the people. When it leaves us, we riot. Riot of droplets, organized by expulsion. What can't be seen clings to dust, like a scholar once said the soul did. Fog's not the only body, stays numinous all its life. It actually wanted to give you back to yourself. I don't think it possessed 1 ounce of progress. We saw ourselves in the same place when it dispersed. The city took its usual shape, buildings implying the streets underneath that gave them findable addresses, places to deliver postal mail, boxes in which letters could be dropped through slots and sorted into people. We could even see how to get there again. Rituals began in moderation. Mid-morning traffic, like blood in a vein. Richard mentioned my baby, my living, ticking time bomb, my hourglass. The supermoon starts the year off with so much light, it wakes everyone up. Its whiteness disquiets. It does not shine a beam. In January, life's not as it seems. It's flat. I had my child like that, Caesarion, Caesar, the general who fell. But the day his friends knifed him, he threw his toga on like all was well. My daughter's swaddle declines into a toga. The way it shimmies in the morning shows how she slept. Morning when dreams get erased. My daughter hates it when I leave the room. People think Emily got her name from poetry, but her Korean father chose it so his family could say it without trouble. Trouble, such a beautiful word. I wish we would say it with abandon. Once I thought we all agreed on kindness, then I ripped a spider web because of some unmanageable fear. There's no place for chopsticks in an American drawer, my husband said. I said, just try me. Just watch me try. I'm American. I can put things anywhere. Richard said the book begins in fog and ends in fire. I want to read some poems from the last section of the book. And the first section of the book, which I read, is about looking out at San Francisco from the Berkeley Hills. The middle section of the book goes all over California, because I wanted to put all of California in the book. And the last section really takes place inside the household and inside the kitchen. And looking at you all and thinking, you know what I mean. It's a big state, California, and we live in its bigness. At the same time, we live in the smallness sometimes of our houses. And it was a small time for me, the pandemic, because I had a small child. So this is a poem for her. Argument with a child. If you don't do this thing, then you can't do the next thing, and I know you want to do the next thing. How do I know? I'll tell you when I'm older. Look at the flowers. Can you say wisteria? You don't want to say wisteria. You'd rather die is the look on your face. How can I fix it if you won't let me look at it? Look at something else while I touch it. Plant your eyes on that placemat of the world you love and don't move them until it stops hurting. There's some talk in our world right now about something called collective grief. And I learned something when I tried to talk to my daughter about Gaza. I learned something I think I didn't know myself, which was, she asked me about it, and she was kind of asking me how do I think about that in light of everything else I'm thinking about. And I just had a dream the night before about a loom, which is an image I dream about a lot. And I said to her, can you just weave a thought of Gaza in the middle of all your other thoughts? Can you weave an idea of what it would be like to be a suffering person in the middle of all of your other thoughts? And I guess the thing I learned was that I needed an image to think about what it meant to mourn with other people and mourn collectively. So this poem isn't about that because it was written about another time, a time I think some of us shared, but it is about the predicament of individual mourning and mourning together. Smoke. Dylan came by and we sat unmasked. We had seen enough of each other all summer. We were almost quarantining together, and he'd been tested twice in the last month, but afterward I took a shower and cried. Phyllis didn't go for a walk. Her lungs are 90. She's not an idiot. But her daughter Paisha did. Paisha once took pictures of clandestine midwives in the 60s, illegally watching over the births of children. They kept our children inside before lunch, but after that the air seemed fine. Though Luna's mother said she coughed at night, and Paloma herself, all of two, told me at pickup she smelled like camping. Margaret said it wasn't so bad yesterday in the Central Valley, where it is generally much worse, but today it was no good. She was crying, not feeling tears, but the other kind, the kind your body makes when it's wise. Young and Emily are fine. Thank you for writing to ask me about them, dead mother. I have heard the whole world is now getting letters from the dead, actual letters addressed to them in human envelopes with stamps of American rivers delivered through the mail. Since the post office is about to die, the land of the dead, its government, have decided for now to take it over, that they could do a better job than we could. And I agree. The letter I received from you, written in a splendid hand on pink paper with a decal edge, looked just like the year that you were born, when warships docked in San Francisco Bay, and ordinary city blocks had wardens, and margarine was what you ate on bread. And since we cannot send a letter back, because your invisible address flummoxes our advanced forensics, I will write this and burn it in a bowl, secretly inside my house, since there are city rules about flames at a time like this. If you won't be reached by words, by smoke, my love will reach you with our story. I'm just going to read two more, and one's slightly longer than the other one, but it's a story, so that's okay, right? And then the other one's short. So I think that what I've always been attracted to in poetry is the ability to solve a problem. And this is a poem that's about trying to do just that. The web. Never seen a whole one until now. Not one broken line, connections flawless, unfrayed. From this angle below the hedge that borders my neighbor, looking toward the upslope of the ordinary driveway, the border orients my sight to the right, and sunlight makes that spinning visible, light leaning on one line, then another shining between the elements until the filament moves just a bit and all of the strands shine visible, each in turn more visible. So the last moves more than a person thinks it could in the actual wind, making the whole web move, though you do not need such assurance, such a view, to be reminded that the web has been fashioned to spread across the hedge since the maker, her modeled abdomen splendid as a ceramic, intended to be beautiful for daily use, situated in the middle, extends her legs and arms to say, I made this. But seen, or rather squinted toward from the other angle, from the top of the poured asphalt whose fierce downslope makes the emergency brake feel insufficient for the car you park. The same web suspended between the hedge and an offshoot of the hedge. From this vantage closer to the street, here only by the maker can her web be seen. Her body just as visible, her health thrown into relief by her invisible work. I wanted to see from both sides what she spun last night before she ate. She is not going anywhere if she can help it. I am trying to put the child in the car. The child goes to play as I go to work. There is only ever enough space to open the door and get barely in. Do I try to not disturb the maker from the angle where I can see her and what she has made, opening the car door gingerly and moving around its side with the child, who certainly will resist the stillness such a task asks of her, with what I am trying not to destroy all the time visible? Or do I walk around the side of the car and open the door intuitively, the way I do every morning toward me, without being able to see the spider or her web? Let us preserve what we can. Desire brings the child and the spider together. It's like a house that's crowded, but not ever full. I remember the tension in the web, the focused light, the way the spider sat on top of what she ate, pairing one art with a darker art, killing exactly what you need to live. No more than that. Sorry for your trouble, the Irish say to each other after death walks in. The wake's a party. Everyone shows up. I look. I see I haven't wrecked her. I buckle my daughter. I bet some of you have seen the deer on our regular city streets. It's the last poem I'm going to read, and it's occasioned by some of them. The deer in fire season. It isn't love that makes them come nestle each other under the liquid amber after they eat all the ivy dahlias and the stalk. The doe only half naps, eyes half open, trained on threats. She fogs her sight to resemble its lack, convincing others she doesn't pay attention. The exact way I endure regrets, smoke screening, deeper fears. Neither is the cause of their loyalty to this location fear, nor is it hunger. It is nothing particular to our plot. Husband, you should not be surprised. I have seen you as particular at a restaurant early in our caring for each other, choosy over a table in the sun. I live with your distastes. Cilantro, small talk, slapstick. I appreciate what you tolerate. Humiliation on the human level, sleepless nights. I know how immovable you are. So chase the mother with your camera. It is you who instructed me the leisure of animals finds equivalence only in art. See, she lets her children escape first. She wants to stall us. So let us be still humans who can lose track of time. Watch her leg. It's like a lower limb of eucalyptus pushing winter. It looks like tinder. Thank you.